Good evening, my name is Spood, and our top story tonight, chaos unfolding in the Rocket Division as records approach historically close margins. We are at a horrible economic deficit, differential down across the board, markets in panic, and we've got more for you on that tonight. But first, we've got Cabral with sports.
I have been trying not to laugh this whole time.
I improv'd it so good, though.
You did so good. I know. I'm sorry. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Double Dip Drafts News Edition. We have some crazy top stories tonight for you, as we said earlier. But I'm Cabral, coach of the Slinging Aegis Slashers. Joining me
is Food, coach of the Southtown Sand Slashers, and we're back with more Rocket Division Week 6. So normally this is do or die, but it turns out you can do both. You can do and you can die. Week 7, we already knew going into this. At the end of last week, we were looking at the standings, and we'll look at them again here for a second, but even, no matter really who wins and who loses, we'll get some more clarity on the path that different players need to take. One or two players will be, mathematically eliminated, but on the whole, it's really, you need to take Week 6 and Week 7 as a combo, because with margins this close, it's still anyone's game, even after we go over what happened this week.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is the matches we have this week. We had mentioned we're not going to know until Week 6 who's going in, and after this week, we do have a really good idea. There's still a couple little toss-ups here and there that could happen, but for instance, this week, one of the bigger matches we're looking at is Sunshine State Smolivs versus the Bidwell Bees. One of them winning this week is huge. And most of the other 3 and 2s for the entirety that is Rocket Division are fighting each other. So people are guaranteed wins and guaranteed losses. And we finally have those to determine most likely who's going into playoffs.
Yeah, the field is going to narrow. We can at least say with confidence that one of either Sunshine State Smolivs or Bidwell Bees is mathematically confirmed out if they lose this week, given that they're tied, and whoever loses is only going to have effectively, we'll get there when we get to the end of the bracket thing, but it's a fair assumption looking at the standings going into Week 6 that the loser between Liz and Goober is going home. They're not getting it anymore. Whereas, the rest of these do have implications. If you're one of the 3 and 2s and you lose, especially if you're on the lower end of the differential, you're in real trouble going into next week. But a lot of, really the only people who I would say are struggling differentially are Aurora and Nihilus to different extents, because the top end 8-6-6 are very close in terms of diff. Although we will see, because Black Captain and Bananas are playing, one of them is going to fall down to a 3 and 3, and they're going to have at least a 5 or a lower diff at that point. So we'll see the margins narrowing. There's not a lot of wiggle room for most players, but especially not for Nihilus and Aurora. So we're going to have to see how it goes this week and learn a little more.
Yeah, we will. So let's get into Aurora's match, coach of the Hoensbroek Hunters, versus ASCII of the Philadelphia Phantumps, and see how Aurora does going into this match. Looking at team preview, we see very similar stuff across the board on both teams, actually. I think we've had Mega Mawile almost every week. We've seen Swampert almost every week, as well as Pangoro and Naganadel.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit more variety out of Aurora's team now, because we're seeing more Volbeat and Levani, but she definitely has her favorites, and we've seen a lot of Pangoro, Naganadel, Mega Mawile.
Oh, yeah. And then we have roughly the same stuff from ASCII as every week, although, we do see a Terra Normal Lucario, which is really fun and interesting to me.
Yeah, Terra Normal Lucario isn't that weird. It's the same kind of rationale as Terra Normal, Flareon kind of does the same thing, because it gets a Guts boost from Flame Orb and also gets Stab on Quick Attack or whatever. So, just if you see Terra Normal, you can think just Stab, Extreme Speed coming through. Again, very VGC thing. You'd see that with some variants of Dragonite still, or back in early regulations, and even in singles, Terra Normal Dragonite was a thing. So I'm not that surprised to see Terra Normal Lucario, and I believe it was something Aurora was worried about too.
Yeah. But I think with that said, let's go ahead and get this started and get watching. I don't think there's a lot to really have covered with the team preview overall. We do see, Mega Charizard start here, clicks, nope, doesn't click Starbeam.
So, that feels like a good opener for ASCII, and I get why he stayed in, but that's kind of like a trap, right? Because you are not only exposing yourself to the Scarf Rock Slide, but more likely you're just exposing yourself to a Rindo Berry Swampert that also hits Rock Slide. So
that's true.
I think it's a bit, ambitious, we'll say, to try and go, to stay in on that. I think that you stand to lose more than you stand to gain if you get that wrong, which he did.
Knock off huge para, actually. Kind of crazy. And at that point, ASCII can't really do much. We do see a Electricity coming out, though, which is really fun. I like the tech of that.
Same as last week. Because it was really good last week, but it almost got, it just barely didn't hack it. So he's basically going for the same setup again now with Electric Seed plus Calm Mind.
Yep.
The Encore, though, getting it a bit passive, but...
Yeah, and this thing doesn't, hit anything really, but the Encore is just going to make this keep doing that. So at this point, ASCII needs to either switch out and kill the funny bug or,
Yeah. Well, here's the deal, right? So Encore only lasts for 3 turns, and then you get to start moving again, unless, obviously, Volbeat is in to stop you. But also, if you run out of Calm Mind PP while you're Encored, you just get to do other stuff. It doesn't make you struggle.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It makes sense that ASCII would basically just dig his heels in and say, like, I'm using my Electric Seed, I'm using my stats, but Aurora has just got the perfect loop here where she can get in a pivot, flip turn out, and then have this back in for another Encore.
Yep. And then we do see Lucario coming in Terra Normal and clicking Shrink Speed and taking out the Encore. So.
Yeah. Feels very Choice Band to me. And then Lilligant doing the Lilligant thing and switching in and dying. Yep. Very tragic, because I feel like that Pokemon goes crazy, and it just has not had much of an opportunity to go crazy yet.
No, it really hasn't.
But we got Quark Drive Speed, Fiery Dance, no special attack buff, but you'll probably get one on your second hit.
Yeah, there it is. Yep, and then at this point, Terra Poison, Fiery Dance doing half its HP. And then...
That is a very bulky thing.
Yeah. And at that point, too much momentum has been lost by ASCII here. We do still have Lucario in the back. We do have some chip Pokemon, but the Gonadel is fully up to HP. Swampert's pretty well off, too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Swampert's fine. The Gonadel's doing pretty well. Mega Mawile's still high enough that it can switch into 1, and it does. We see Psychic Face comes out, doesn't kill. So. Aurora opts to sack this instead.
Yeah.
Just basically she can just pick whatever and get in another full health Pokemon, because you can't obviously switch this in on 1 and then take another. So, but that is it. That is all she wrote, and that is going to dash any hope of ASCII making it into playoffs. That unfortunately does finally mathematically eliminate him. He was hanging on just by a thread for the last few weeks, but that is going to remove him from contention, and that gives Aurora just a little bit more wiggle room.
Yeah, and there's not really much else to say, I feel like, and we should probably move on to the next match, because I think what we're building to is just... Who do we see in Week 7? What fights matter at this point, I did want to say we saw good plays from Aurora, keeping some diff and everything. I like some of the tech from ASCII. I love the Electric Seed because I think a lot of people kind of overlook that stuff sometimes. I think that's really fun tech.
It's good, yeah. I mean, usually you see Electric Seed in the context of like an unburdened sweeper, something that you see very famously on like Hawlucha, for instance. Yes. It really likes running on terrain because it gets unburdened with a seed, and then, especially if you get access to something like Acrobatics, you're immediately going very fast, hitting very hard. But Aurora, she just has the answers. ASCII didn't scout sufficiently and got punished for it, just literally off rip, losing Mega Charizard Y. A lot of people in this division doing a really good job of exploiting its weakness to rock and its inability to hold an actual item. Yeah. And Aurora, no slouch to doing it, and has looked very consistent after losing her first 2 games. Just win, 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 win. Once she got her head around the draft and just started picking up steam, it's been very hard to stop her.
Yeah.
But we do have another interesting match, and it will contextually be very relevant when we get back to talking about this during standings. We have got Bananas of Don't Drop That Dedennes facing off against Ray High Black Captain of the Martian Mantines. This is a very important match. This has huge implications because I believe going into this, they are tied.
They're tied at 3-2 at 6.
They're tied at 3-2 and 6.
Yep.
And really, a lot of the season, again, Bananas, similar to Aurora, started off on a back foot, having lost to Nihilus in week 1, but has been looking pretty consistent on the whole, on the come up. Whereas Black Captain looked pretty good earlier on, but he's been taking a couple of losses lately. And so we're going to have to see if the momentum carries, because if patterns continue, if trends continue, we're going to see another Bananas win, another Mantines lost, and then suddenly that position that looked very dominant early on for Black Captain could start slipping away.
Yeah, and that's what ends up happening, I feel like, in a lot of the later weeks is, if you get the players who have had matches that are in favor of them winning by seeding, they often start out really strong and look really strong, but then later in those other weeks when they start fighting other players of similar caliber, they start falling down the rankings, and you see more of a mix-up, and I think Rocket's had a lot of that stuff going on.
Yeah, Rocket, again, it's just because the margins are so narrow.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that... a lot of the time in draft leagues, you wind up with player bases who are more or less on the same level, and so things like this happen somewhat often in like these really big, really professional invite-only draft leagues. Double Dip is kind of a slightly different story because a lot of the time we're inviting players from all across the skill level bracket. There are people playing who've never touched the game before. There are people who are casual players, people who have, related but not directly related competitive experience in VGC or on the ladder or whatever. And we have people who've been doing this for 10 years and who are very, very good at it. And so you tend to see people kind of sorting themselves into the player tiers of like really, really good, solid fundamentals, sleeper hit, and then people who are still kind of coming to grips with everything.
Yeah.
But in Rocket, I mean, the lines have sufficiently blurred. We have a lot of people who are just having breakout seasons, way overperforming, and we're having people who are taking some uncharacteristic losses, some early upsets. And that is changing the whole dynamic, where it goes from, I have a pretty good idea by seed of who's going to advance by the end of week 1, to we're approaching week 7 and everyone is everywhere, and there's so many circular, like, I beat you, you beat that guy, then you beat me, then I beat that guy, then that guy beat you. Like, there's no one straight path that you can easily draw between anybody.
And the thing is, too, there's a level of not just player skill, but the level of RNG involved in so much of Double Dip is also a huge factor in so many games that we've seen this season. We've seen
I don't really see that as having
freezes, I feel like, in this season.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that's been as much of a factor in Rocket specifically, but it has definitely been the case in places like Magma and Skull, especially. You've seen a lot of shenanigans with the RNG.
Yeah. But with that being said, we're going to jump back onto the teams and looking at these real quick so we can watch Black Captain versus Bananas. And from Black Captain, we do see Savali. No idea what that's going to be. I'm sure the answer is anything and everything.
Could be anything. You can tell by Terror Preview that it should be poison.
Okay.
It's interesting because you also see Illumise off the bench today, which hasn't come like that often. And it's funny because we got double Hoenn bug power in this week because of Aurora Volbeat. And it put in a lot of work. And just again, in general, Black Captain's draft looks so strong. Aegislash looks pretty exposed to Urshifu and like maybe even a Scarf or even really a Specs. What do you call it? Typhlosion.
Yeah.
Iron Bundle looks really good into this team, but it does need some chip to get started, especially into something like Galarian Slowking, which is just so bulky against what it tries to do.
Yeah.
And Bananas also looks a little bit vulnerable to Tailwind, which does, Rayhai's got a few options to do Tailwind. But Bananas also has his own in Gligar. So we're also seeing Persian off the bench. I think this is the first game that has been to, maybe the second.
It's fun. I like how fast it is. I like that it gets very unique moves here and there. It gets Parting Shot. It's a dark type. It Fake Outs. You can, I think it gets, no, it doesn't get U-Turn, but it does get some other niche little moves here and there. It gets Technician as well, and with Fake Out, that's really fun. It hits really hard. Also gets Knock, which is great.
It's got a better typing and a better move pool than regular Persian. Mm-hmm. I am going to check real quick because I think it does get U-Turn.
Does it get U-Turn?
It does get U-Turn.
I thought it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I went to double check that because I was like, I don't think that you're right. Yeah, it gets access to Technician. You know, it has stuff like, I don't know, it can run Beat Up, which it's one of the better Beat Up users, even though Beat Up is kind of an obscure move. You know, like you say, Fake Out is good. It can basically just maneuver around and do the regular sort of tricky dark type stuff.
Yeah, I think it gets
it's not
switcheroo as
better
well.
than others, but let me check. Switcheroo. Yes, it does.
Cool. So you can trick items basically onto other Pokemon and stuff, and with how fast it is, it's pretty decent at it. It's no prankster.
It's no prankster, but it's a decent dark type, and it's kind of nice that it isn't prankster because it can still maybe get some stuff over on Urshifu.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's like 115 base speed too. Either way, I like it, and actually I've been thinking about drafting it next season potentially, but we're not even there yet because I think it's a Terra Captain option too, right?
That wouldn't surprise me. I'll have to go double check that.
Yeah, double dip that. But while we look into that, let's go ahead and look into this match. We do have a Gligar lead, which is pretty classic, and Slowking here as well. Power Gem doing nothing to this thing with Eviolite. Knockoff doing some decent damage, getting rid of Black Sludge, so you do get Chilly Reception saying in Hydreigon, which is something that could potentially be really scary. Surf,
Alolan version is only 2 points, so yes, it could be a Terra Captain, but it's not. There we go.
Got it. Surf doing almost half its health, which is kind of crazy that it's not doing more.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned before, I mean, honestly, even 22 is more damage than I was expecting Bundle to be able to put into Slowking. It is just that bulky,
Yeah.
and if you don't have a good type advantage or a strong physical hit, it's just very tough to break.
Yeah. The bug is here, probably defogging or rapid. Yeah, there it is. It doesn't rapid spin.
There it goes.
Yeah.
A lot of pivoting, kind of to be expected.
And another pivot, but doing so much damage with a U-turn. It's actually incredible to me that Gligar is still alive at this point.
Yeah. Crit's really nice for Bananas there, because it does effectively undo like half a regenerator, He's losing the opportunity to get out here, and the Power Gem is pretty greedy. I'm not really sure why he let Slowking die here, because I guess he didn't want to sack anything else into Gligar, but I still think you could have made much better use out of the...
Yeah, and at this point, though, we do see Hydreigon lead, which means next time it comes on a rock being at 13% health, it likely dies. I think it might depend on the roll, potentially, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, he should have defogged there.
Yeah.
Because he plays a bit aggro to get this in. I gotta assume he's just kind of freeballing it, not doing any calcs or whatever, because he's doing a lot of just vibes-based moves, is what it feels like.
Yeah. We do see Silvally Fairy, by the way.
Amount of damage. Yeah, Silvally Fairy. It's a poison Terra type, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if it's like a Smogon set that he just kind of pilfered.
Yeah, could be.
Tough switch in there, too. Ironhead definitely put it in range of a handful of things.
Yeah, and this thing being faster, getting play rough is crazy.
Yup.
And the bug dies.
Yeah. Yeah, Black Captain not defogging the rocks sooner does come back to bite him. He dies on rocks.
Yeah, which means for sure now Hydreigon will die on rocks and can't do anything at this point. So that is effectively...
Yeah.
It's a safe sack, though. It's nice to have some fake sacks here and there to be able to take care of some stuff.
I do like this. The Terra Fire Burn-Up is nice because it doesn't remove your fire typing, so you can continue to spam it, and it's a little bit more reliable than something like Eruption, which at its best is slightly more powerful, but obviously is easy to counterplay with something like Shadow Sneak, which we did see.
At this point, though, that thing surviving is crazy. Black Captain's lost momentum, and we already know at this point that Hydreigon cannot come in, so with this thing down to 40% HP, going down to 35, and then parting shotting.
Yeah, and then Hydreigon dies on rocks, and then Silvally dies on rocks.
Hey, you know what? Iron Bundle didn't get more kills, and that's all that matters.
That is true. He decided to go out on his own terms. He said, I am going to sack my Pokemon to Gligar Stealth Rocks, because I respect Gligar so much that I think it deserves 3 more kills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. I think that there were a lot of opportunities for Black Captain to keep his momentum going, to put more pressure on, to pivot, a little more responsibly, preserve things like Slowking with Regenerator, because it could just still be such an issue in the late game, but he was just kind of letting his game pieces die. I think just kind of the strategy sort of came apart halfway through and never really came back.
Yeah, but that leaves Bananas with a 4-0, and Black Captain they're no longer tied. I can tell you that much. But
that is true. Banana's feeling much better after that rough week 1, but Black Captain is now feeling the hurt because this takes someone who was looking basically locked and puts him in a very dangerous position going into week 7.
Yeah, and we'll have to get into that after these next couple of fights. But next we have the make or break match we had mentioned earlier, which is Goober Trooper of the Bidwell Bees versus Liz of the Sunshine State Smolivs. And they're both at a 2-3 right now, right? Is that what it is?
2-3 minus 4.
Yeah,
I think is where they're at. Basically, they're both tied, and these are again. I've been bringing it up a couple times as we go through these, but kindred spirits. They are here under pretty much the same pretense. They're part of the same friend group. They have about the same amount of Pokemon experience going into it, and they're both just really outperforming their seed, but not by enough at this point. The record has kind of equalized to the point that now that they're both sitting at 3 losses, whoever takes their 4th loss going into week 7 is out.
Yeah.
There's going to be people who effectively are all guaranteed to have found a 4th win at some point.
Yep.
So if you can only max at a 3 and 4, you just can't get in anymore. And that's looking like the case. Again, we'll go into more detail later. But it's not even really make or break. It's keep your head above water or break, right? If you lose this, you're out. If you win it, you're still not guaranteed in. But you need to win it if you have any hope of making playoffs.
Yeah. And we see, some staple Pokemon that are scary on both sides of the party. We've talked a lot about Goober's draft and the Pokemon he has, and we can see this week he's brought, some fearsome Pokemon. Arcanine alone just hits so many of these things that are right here in front of us.
There Goes Guzzlord is a cool pick, too.
I love that.
Pretty
That's
interesting.
fun.
And it's kind of a gamble into something like Annihilate, because obviously Annihilate has fighting and ghost coverage, which is very hard to handle.
Yeah.
But that fighting type, it's immune into Ghost, but Ghost is ineffective into Dark. So that's kind of a 50-50 that you could force if you wound up, Terra Ghost Guzzlord in front of Annihilate.
Yeah. So it's some fun tech there. We do see Electro Hisui here with Terra Water as well, and that thing is it is one of the fastest Pokemon in the entire franchise, right? Its base speed is 6th or 2nd or something. I can't remember.
It's really high up there. I mean, Regieleki and Deoxys Speed outrun it, but it is really, really insanely fast, and it has good coverage. I mean, Terra Water with Electric and Grass hits pretty much this whole team except for Guzzlord in some kind of meaningful way.
Yeah.
And it's those mega Pokemon, right? There's less counterplay they can do because items are so important in this game, especially in draft. There's no Pinch Berry, there's no Scarfing, there's no boots, there's no Sash. So you're stuck with just, Mega Beedrill and Mega Steelix the way they are. And what's funny is those are both just stat barf Pokemon, big number. Beedrill hits really hard, Steelix takes no damage. It literally is unstoppable wall meets immovable object, although based on the typing, immovable object stays much more immovable than unstoppable force stays unstoppable.
That's so true. But let's get into the match. Let's look into how they both played this week. And Latias coming out, good start. Rock Dog is also here with good start, good lead.
Yep. Goober decides to scout, see what kind of set this Latias is, get a little more info instead of risking Arcanine, because it does look like a very high value piece, and he's right to do so, because that Surf would have just immediately taken it out.
Yeah.
Pretty aggressive Glamora, too. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, we're seeing a pretty aggressive set from Liz overall here, actually. We do see the Ghost and the knockoff there. She's back after the Lando, expecting probably an Earthquake or something.
Yep, and this thing is pretty vulnerable to a special Landorus, and so it switches out, and Goober gets the double wrong. He's right to double, but he's wrong to go back into Arcanine, because he catches a Latias and then Surf just... Yeah. There goes Guzzlord.
Yep. Did the crit matter? Don't know.
No, I don't think so. Actually, I think it might have mattered a little bit. I forget, but either way, I mean, it was outrunning it, so...
Yeah. And we get a double here again, expecting Liz to switch, and we do get a double.
He catches the double correctly that time. These rocks are giving him some trouble, though.
Yeah.
Goober has sussed out. He has a feeling this is choice specs, and he is correct. So he knows he can at least outrun it.
Yeah.
And he goes for, again, a pretty risky drill run, but he's getting all these reads right. He's really, doing his best to claw back from this early deficit. But the field control is just so tough. He doesn't have his hazards. She does. And she's able to put off so much pressure with his Latias that he's forced to switch or sack every time.
Yeah, exactly. Bidwell coming in here being faster, it's able to come and hit something really hard.
Yep. U-turn is just always good, especially now that Steelix is out of the picture.
Yeah.
Arcanine comes in,
Very
and this head smash
unfortunate.
is tragic. That would have killed. And Arcanine can do a pretty good amount of this team. It's not a free win. I mean, you get Latias out again, but still, the momentum swing there, like, that went from being, like, maybe 5% possible to 100% impossible.
Yeah.
And just for good measure, we see a Scarf Annihilate come out, finish off B-Drill, and, close combat's all it takes to get this thing out of the picture, too.
Yeah. And at that point, Goober just lost the momentum. I wonder, though, if there was an opportunity a few turns ago. We saw, where was it? We talked about this previously here. When Landorus died, if instead of Beedrill coming out, it was actually Cloyster to scare off the Latias with a Shell Smash, if that might have done a little more damage or helped out.
The thing is, like, even if he had gotten the Shell Smash there, like, Latias just probably hits Surf again, because it's very specially weak. It's only slightly resisted, and Specs, like, that's going to hurt, especially after Rocks and Toxic, or, poison damage.
Yeah.
So, I don't, I agree with what Goober did. I think that's what I would have done, too.
Fair. Yeah. Like I said, it's just something I thought we could have brought up and talked about a little bit is all.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's an idea, because Shell Smash Cloyster goes crazy into this team. I was told after the fact by Liz that she did have a Scarf on Electrode as well, just in case, as like an extra, layer of insurance against a Shell Smash Cloyster, because it does outrun it. So, yeah, that's a heartbreaker, man. Goober really, gave it his all, and Liz was just able to basically out prep and outmaneuver what he was able to do.
Yeah. So I got an email from work. I got distracted. My bad. Either way, that does actually, poor Goober is no longer able to qualify for playoffs at this point. So now it is in the hands of Liz to carry on his spirit.
It's true. And the 4-0 is pretty decent news for Liz. That's, that's solid differential, and it is going to matter.
Yeah. We got one match.
We got one more.
Yeah, we do have one match. Tell me about it.
Oh, I will! Lastly, we have got Nihilus of the Dallas Duckletts fighting Menma of the Minnesota Jynx, another set of players similar to Banana and Aurora. Bananas and Aurora. Banana and Auroras. Both of these guys sitting at a tied 3-2, and winner looks really good. Loser looks in a bad spot. In particular, Nihilus has a bit more on the line than Menma, because Menma is sitting with the best differential in the division. Going into this, he is at the very top. Whereas Nihilus has the lowest differential of all of the 3-2 players at a -2. So he needs to win this, and he also ideally needs to win this by like a pretty healthy margin to offset some of that damage, because this week 7, it is going to matter. It is going to come down to differential and head-to-head matchup, and he really, really wants this one.
Yeah, and with it just so close, even with the wins and losses we've been seeing, this has been a very narrow margin to get into playoffs overall for Rocket Division compared to some other divisions, which you'll find out about later. But for now,
well, let's talk about something else that's interesting.
Roaring Moon.
Well, we have trades. We have a trade.
That's right. Sorry, I saw Roaring Moon. I didn't realize there was something behind it there in the preview.
And Everest is getting a little Mike Wazowski by Roaring Moon's huge wings.
Yeah, but we do have a trade. We had Menma of the of the Minnesota Jynx trade with Mass of the Treasure Town Togetix 2 Pokemon. Enamorus for Enamorus. Specifically, Enamorus incarnates what Menma did have and traded it for Therian with Mass.
No, you got it backwards.
I had it backwards.
Nope, that's Incarnate is what he has now. Therian is what he had before. And he also traded Azelf as a combo and received... he got Azelf and he gave away Iron Valiant for it. So.
Yes.
And he brought both of those new pickups, both Azelf and Enamorus Incarnate, to this fight.
Yeah.
So this is the only trade we got all season, and now the trades are closed. It's the only trade we're going to get all season.
Yeah. But yeah, the trades are interesting. I'm wondering if, having Azelf being a levitator could have been really nice to have. On top of that, Enamorous, this one being more, it is faster and hits a little hard, especially if I remember correctly based off the stats compared to the other Enamorous.
Azelf is a really solid mixed attacker and a good lead. It does all the stuff that like Yuxi and Mesprit are okay at doing, but it also just goes fast and hits hard at the same time.
Yeah.
It's definitely the strongest of the three in that trio. And I think it's a great value pickup, and obviously something that Menma felt was appropriate for his team going into the end of the division stage. Because and I think it also somewhat addresses his weakness to Fairy, because it's not resisting Fairy or anything. He's still got Melmetal to do that, but he has made himself less exposed to a Fairy sweep with something that loves to run Sash, has a spikes immunity, doesn't get webbed, Levitate's very relevant, and I think Azelf can fill a handful of different slots in a way where, Valiant is obviously amazing, but, Valiant is more of like the roll your face on the keyboard kind of amazing, where it can just do anything, and it's hard to tell how you're supposed to counterplay it until you know what it does, and by the time you know what it's doing, it's already killed one of your guys, at least. Whereas now Enamorous is kind of taking that spot, and Azelf is now filling kind of a general purpose sort of hybrid offensive and support Pokemon role that Enamorous Therian wasn't really doing.
Yeah. So, but those are our trades. Only trade that we had this whole season, like you said. So, but yeah, looking at team preview, we do have, I like the Oxys defense. It's just such a solid Pokemon. We do see Blastoise come back and potentially maybe another Shell Smash set or maybe something other that's goofy with it. Smeargle, don't know what that's doing. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, you never know what Smeargle's doing. He has been bringing it real wacky world, like every week. He's shared some of the sets. We haven't really seen Smeargle get a lot of action as far as like succeeding with its goofy sets. Like generally when Nihilus wins, it's not due to Smeargle cheese. He's just doing it with like one of his other Pokemon.
Yeah.
But in this game, just as a spoiler, it is a much more traditional Smeargle set, and that's also something that Menma is prepared to fight a little better. I think just in general, Roaring Moon sweep is something that's very scary. Nihilus has to stop it from happening. Pecharunt is pretty tough to break because Nihilus has a lot of somewhat passive Pokemon here. And his Terra types, again, something that is just something we were made aware of later, but he intended to have Terra Ground on his Vikavolt and brought Terra Water instead, making it not as strong into Pecharunt also.
Yeah. And we'll have to see how that plays out for him. And then we were talking about Menma's team a little bit. I think we're good to start.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's get started.
Melmetal looks really strong also. It's hard for
nice.
Nihilus to break, and it's just a good Pokemon.
Yeah, immediate knockoff on Azelf.
Yep, we see that Azelf lead, it's Sash, and it's, Thunder Wave Stealth Rock, so it's not like a super aggro one, it's just a pretty standard lead, but it does match up pretty poorly into Cyclizar, and all it really gets is a set of rocks that are immediately spun away.
Yeah. So, but this thing's Thunder Punch doing 77% HP to this Blastoise is crazy.
Yep. In return, it is exposed to getting Thunder Punch for the spin, so Azelf does get value indirectly through that. Also, Dragon Tail Miss doesn't matter, it wouldn't have broken the sub, absolutely not.
Yeah. So, we get a Thunder Wave miss here, and immediately we get a Seismic Toss, not breaking the sub on this Melmetal, which is crazy.
Actually, I think then in back-to-back Thunder Wave misses too. That's a 1% chance.
Yeah.
Now the third Thunder Wave is just into Wee Wee, who's already paralyzed.
Yeah.
And does not love taking a double Iron Bash.
Mm-hmm.
Vikavolt behind a Reflect also doesn't really mind being in front of this. And Bug Buzz, being a sound move, bypasses the substitute, so he doesn't even have to worry about it.
Yeah. And Bug Buzz is just free click again for whatever comes in.
Well, he's got better ideas. He could Volt Switch, and he opts instead to get Webs up.
Yeah.
Stacks the Paralyzed Cyclizar into Enamorous makes a lot of sense. And here's where we see that that team building come into play. Spore into the safety goggles. He hard predicts a Spore will come on Smeargle and that it will click it in that turn, and he's 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, though, we do see a little bit of a momentum shift towards Nihilus because he's on-cored that Malignant Chain. He gets a free turn to do whatever he wants, and he uses it to sub.
And we do get a Boots hit him on top as well, as we don't see a speed drop at all there with an insane Gigaton Hammer doing a lot of damage.
A lot of damage. Yep. Nyla switches this in on a close combat. It's a pretty safe switch, and, more or less can kill him on top here. He does decide to get up a Reflect instead, which is probably fine. But he does also get those webs spun away.
Yeah.
And teleports out. Tinkaton comes in. Potential to encore the Pecharunt. Menma recognizes that, switches out. Nihilus recognizes he's going to switch and gets up the sub. So there's a lot of good play happening. Like, they're both being very cerebral here,
Yeah, we get some rocks that are finally coming up. Also, Shadow Ball not breaking the sub on this thing is crazy.
Yep. Gigaton Hammer brings it down, but you can only Gigaton every other turn, and we see another recover.
Yeah.
Nihilus attempts to encore the recover to try and burn some of that PP, and again, keep Pecharunt very inert. And he is still getting some good momentum because he's threatening these Gigaton Hammers every once in a while.
Yeah.
Here, he kind of just blunders the encore. I guess he just thought that he was going to be slower than Pecharunt, but he should have known that he wasn't going to be. But we're seeing difficulty here. And I don't know if that's a blunder or just like 5D chess type thing, but he tries to spore into the safety goggles. I think assuming that there's going to be a switch out, I'm sure he didn't just forget about it.
Yeah.
But Menma stays in, belligerently, in fact.
Yeah. And at this point, Nihilus definitely on a back foot in comparison with 4 Pokemon left on Menma's side. We still haven't seen Roaring Moon yet, and there it is.
Yeah, Nihilus doesn't have the defensive wherewithal to handle these, and he doesn't really have the offensive presence to break Pecharunt, or really even this.
Yeah.
And just one last insult to injury, the taunt goes through the Burning Bulwark, which he does in order to hopefully bait an attack, and doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't get the burn, and Vikavolt, just with that Terra Water, not going to be good enough.
Yep.
Not that Ground would have helped there, but Ground could have helped him position a little better against Pecharunt through that mid-game where Pecharunt was a real menace. And we see another win by a healthy margin from Menma, putting his differential even higher, elevating him to a 4-2, and putting Nihilus in virtually an unadvanceable position. Not strictly unadvanceable, we will talk about that here in a minute, but that is a tough break for Nihilus. That is a big win for Menma, more or less securing his position in playoffs.
Yeah, and I think with that being said, the only thing we can really do now is actually go into the actual division standings and start to analyze and look at, who's making the playoffs and who's not. And if you take the top half, I'll take the bottom half.
Much obliged. Well, bringing up the top of the pack, as we were just saying, we've got Menma of the Minnesota Jynx maintaining that first place spot, now at a 4-2 plus 12 differential. In second place, we're seeing Bananas of Don't Drop That Dedennes at a 4-2 plus 10, and in third, Aurora of the Hoensbroek Haunters at a 4-2 plus 5. Now the fourth player, the only one in top 4 now that is not at 4-2, is Black Captain of the Martian Mantines, who's been knocked down to fourth place at a 3-3 plus 2.
Yep, and in fifth place we have the Sunshine State Smolivs at a 3-3 plus 0, with Nihilus at a 3-3 minus 6. Bidwell Bees in seventh place at a 2-4 minus 8, and the Philadelphia Phantumps at a 1-5 minus 15. And with that being said, we know for certain now that Goober and ASCII are definitely out of playoffs running. However, there is still an opportunity for Nihilus to squeak on in if certain, factors line up correctly.
Yes, and I have to preface this by saying, Nihilus, I'm so sorry this keeps happening, where, you have seasons where you're, right there, and then you wind up in the most obscene, get this thing to happen, the stars need to align for you to advance. Because, God, he's so good, and he should be in playoffs more, and it just sucks that he winds up having, really solid seasons, and then just, being in the worst possible divisions for stuff like this. But next week, the matches mean everything.
Yes, they do.
And among those matches is Bananas versus Aurora, who are in second and third place, respectively. Now, Aurora is at a 4-2 plus 5.
Yeah.
If she loses to Bananas, she'll be at a 4-3 minus 1. If Nihilus 6-0's ASCII, he will be at a 4-3 plus 0. So he would edge out Aurora by 1 differential, and that would be enough to get him in and knock her out. So that is still possible, but that requires 2 concurrent 6-0s to happen. That means he has to 6-0 his match, Bananas has to 6-0 his match. That will barely get him in. That would kick Aurora out.
Yeah.
Black Captain versus Liz is the other really, really earth-shaking one, because basically no matter what happens, winner goes on, loser goes out.
Yep.
They're currently not tied, but Martian Mantine's at a 3-3+2, Liz at a 3-3+0. That means that even if she just won owes him, she would be up to 4-3. He'd be at 3-4. She would go on. He would fall out.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. You know, again, the only way that like Nihilus could squeak in is through that 6-0, but that would just move whoever between Liz and Black Captain wins up into third. Meanwhile, you know, if Aurora beats Bananas, entirely possible that she takes first place, presuming that Menma doesn't just also win his week 7, which I believe is against Goober.
I believe I will look at the schedule for that. That is the case.
Yeah, which is, you know, looking Menma favored given the matchup, but still not impossible. He did drop to Liz, who, again, like Liz and Goober are kind of two sides of the same coin, so we'll have to see how that sort of plays out. But that's them's the breaks. That's the rub. You know, if Goober wins, he ends up at 3-4, best case scenario. And there are just already people who have 3 wins above him, and between Liz and Black Captain, one of them is guaranteed to go to 4, which means we're going to have 4 people at 4 wins minimum. That means that at 3 wins, you just can't get in. So, yeah. Goober's out by the same rationale, but, like, worse odds. ASCII's also out.
Yeah, and it's been such a tight season, and the fact that we still have a contention potentially here if Aurora does get 6-0'd and Nihilus 6-0's, neither of which are impossible. You know, anything's possible, right? It's division. Anything can and will happen.
Right.
But, like, Rocket's been such a roller coaster of matches overall, and I'm very excited to see it finally wrap up and us getting into playoffs. After next week as well, probably during the last part of each of the divisions, we'll be talking about how playoffs is going to look and how it's going to, like, operate. Because basically it'll be certain players from certain divisions, like first place versus fourth place of a different division, or second versus third place of another division. But that stuff we'll go over in details when we actually get to the end of week 7 and the final matches are through for the actual season.
Yeah, because at this point now, if you're on the upper end, like Menma, you know, if he loses his match again, look, we're talking about like worst case scenario, he gets 6-0'd, he's still sitting at 4-3+6. That should still guarantee him in over people. You know, like if Liz were to win, for example, then, you know, she would also be at 4-3+6 if she 6-0'd. Actually, she gets the tiebreaker in that case. She can move above Menma. That's kind of a funny thought. She can fly from 5th to something that looks like maybe 2nd or 3rd. And I think realistically, again, it really depends on whether Menma wins or loses, but between Bananas and Aurora, you could see either of them moving up into first place as well. Like the top 3, I don't think are set in stone. Obviously, differential matters a lot, and at this point, because Menma has 7 more diff than Aurora, that movement is going to have to be pretty severe on both sides. Like he's going to have a hard loss, and she's going to have a hard win in order for those standings to shift.
Yeah. Again, there's still so much nuance to Rocket and the players here. You know, in comparison, you look at Aqua Division. By the way, if you want to go check out the other divisions this week and see how their standings are, it's kind of crazy. Aqua right now, is guaranteed. We know who's going to playoffs, and you got to go find out when you go watch that video.
That's true.
And even Magma, we have a really good idea of who's going to make it, but there's still some shakeup in Magma. Skull, we actually have some guarantees already for playoffs as well. And it's interesting that Rocket, despite being so close all season, now we're just down to 4th place and maybe 3rd place, depending. But we really have a good idea now of Rocket at this point.
Yeah, we are seeing basically the field has narrowed to only 6 valid participants, and one of them being Nihilus is like a long shot. Like that is going to be a miracle if things line up, and that's the worst thing when you get to these like 7th week scenarios where like not only do you have to rely on your own performance, but even if he goes beast mode, goes crazy, does get the 6-0 into ASCII, he's still going to need Bananas to also go beast mode in 6-0 Aurora, which is going to be very hard because Aurora, top seed of the division, currently one of the 3, 4, and 2s, and a really great player. But if anyone else in the division could be poised to maybe find that 6-0, it is Bananas. He is the next best seed. and someone who is also sporting a better record than her by diff. So, again, it's not out of the question. Aurora cannot relax yet, but as long as she gets one KO, or if Nihilus doesn't 6-0 ASCII, she should basically still be guaranteed in.
Yeah.
In fact, I think she literally is guaranteed in.
She
the
is
second that either Nihilus loses a Pokemon or she takes one.
Yep. So, but that's about all we have for Rocket. We have 1 week left to go of some stunning matches. I think it's going to be a really good week 7 overall. This has probably been the most competitive double dip season we've seen for quite a few of the divisions, honestly.
Yeah, this one has been a very exciting season. I'm very glad that we're approaching the end of the road for Division. I'm really anxious to see what playoffs looks like. I'm very excited to bring you some more playoffs coverage.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, check out Aqua Division. That's going to be covered by Cabral and Aurora?
Yeah, Aurora.
Magma is me and White Loaf. Skull is Cabral. No, Skull is White Loaf and Aurora. There we go. Got it.
Don't watch my match.
Don't watch mine either, actually. You can just stop watching after you're done with Rocket. You can just leave. Maybe go watch Aqua if you feel like it.
There you go. Yeah, that should be just fine. But with that being said, thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you in week 7 as we go into playoffs.
Let's go!
Let's go!